So when you're hiring, what do you look for? What do you tell your managers to look for when you're creating those high performance teams?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's certain things, of course, in any particular role, you're looking for functional capability or expertise to do the role. But we put a lot of focus on culture fit and sort of the ability to have people that want to grow with the company.
What about things like, smarts, work ethic, ego?
Yeah, well, it's very funny. I actually have this little formula that you might appreciate that I talk about people being successful and what you need to do to be successful in your career from sort of an intrinsics, like you're talking about. But it's also a great tool to use in interviewing. It's a formula. It's a little complicated, but there's three factors to it. And the expression is SEW, S-E-W, and the S is around smarts, and that is sort of just the skill sets they have and the intelligence they have. That you get comfortable that they're going to bring a lot. The second one is E for ego. And that's people's really ability to suppress, focus on themselves, and actually be oriented towards the team's success, which I think is great. And then W is for work and how hard you work, or the grunt that you're willing to put into it. And I say if you take the smarts and you divide them by the ego, and you raise that whole piece to the power of how hard you work, that's the formula. And so when I interview people, you think most importantly is having your smarts higher than your ego, because you want to have a positive ratio. And then the work just amplifies it, and it's obviously the biggest driver of how much you can achieve. So those are the ways I think about people's intrinsic skills.
So the smarts, easy to identify in conversation, right? The ego piece, how do you know? I mean, the person could be faking it. The person could be an egomaniac once he or she starts the job.
Yeah, you're very right. And I think the best way to sort of ferret that out in conversations with people is less about saying, do you have a high ego? And much more about saying, tell me stories about how you work in teams. And one of my favorite questions is to ask people, if all your colleagues in your last couple of jobs are in the room and you weren't here, and I said to them, hey, what does she do that's just amazing? And then they answer. And then I say, hey, if I ask those same people, what would they say are the things that you really needed to work on? And you get the response. And some people say things like, well, they'd all say I work too hard. I'm too much of a giver,
Oh, that's a formula.
All I do is give it. And you realize you have no self-knowledge. And if you have no self-knowledge, you probably have an ego challenge. And if people can really point to constructive things that they're working on, that they're aware of, you get a much better sense that they have that control of their ego. So that's how I think about it.